Ni hao. Welcome to Board Games with Scott. This week I'm going to be talking about Mah Jongg. It's not just an ancient Chinese secret anymore, but it's a game that's a lot of fun to play. I've been playing Mah Jongg for 4 or 5 years now and quite enjoy it. During this review I'm going to be talking about the Asian style of Mah Jongg first. At the end of the review, I'll introduce the American style of Mah Jongg, which is a little different. Now, this is not the Mah Jongg where you click on pairs of tiles in your computer. It's a very different game, and it's really too bad that people use the name Mah Jongg for that game, because that's a solitaire picking pairs game. The actual game of Mah Jongg uses the same type of tiles, but instead it's more like a game of rummy, a game of collecting sets. So with that, I'll talk a little bit about what you get. Now, in most Mah Jongg sets, you can spend a little bit or a lot of money. You can get pieces that are plastic, like what I've got here. You can get pieces that are bone and bamboo, very nice pieces like that. The average set is going to give you these types of pieces in some sort of a little vinyl case. You get some dice, some three small six-sided dice. And you might get something that looks like this. This is the marker that tells you what the wind of the round is. I'll talk about that a bit later. Mahjong is a inspired game in that everything has meaning behind it. You have different types of suits. You have 3 different suits, just like playing cards. Each one of these is just like a playing card. So you have different types of suits. You have winds, you have dragons, and you're attempting to collect sets. Let's take a closer look at some of the tiles, and I'll talk through what you get with the Mah Jongg set. The way to think about these tiles are to think about them like playing cards. You've got 3 suits here, and then you have some special tiles. And then there's some other special tiles which I'll talk about a bit later. So you've got dots, the suit of dots. They run from 1 to 9, and there's 4 of every tile. So there's 4 of the 4 dots tiles. There's 4 of the 6 dots tiles. Again, they run from 1 to 9. You've got bamboo. Bamboo also runs from 1 to 9, and again, there's 4 of every one of these tiles. So for the 8 bamboo tile, there's 4 of those. You have characters here, which again run from 1 to 9, and you have 4 of every one of those tiles. So you have 3 suits in the game: dots, bamboo, and characters. And then you have special tiles. You have winds, north, west, south, east winds, and again 4 of each one of those tiles in the game. And dragons. You have a green dragon, red dragon, and a white dragon, and again there's 4 of each of those tiles. And those are the basic tiles that you use. Notice, so what you need to keep in mind is that there's 4 of every tile that you see up here in the game. These flowers and seasons, which are down here, and these blank tiles are used for variants, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. But for right now, I want to focus on the basic game, which uses these 3 sets of tiles and these special tiles. This is a close-up of the special tiles. You have the dragons, the white, the red, and the green dragons, and the winds, north, south, east, west winds. There's also another tile which can confuse you the first time you get it, and it's this. This is the 1 of bamboo. So that's the 2 of bamboo. They always put a bird on it. Just think 1 bird, and you'll remember that the tile with a bird on it is the 1 bamboo tile. In a hand of Mah Jongg, you're going to have 13 tiles in your hand. On your turn, you will draw a new tile, making it 14, and then you will discard a tile. The goal is to be the first one to go out, to match up your entire hand, to declare Mah Jongg and go out. And when you declare Mah Jongg, you'll do it with 14 tiles, and they have to be 4 sets of 3 and a pair. A set of 3 can be 3 of the same tiles, like these 3 green dragons, or these 3 1 characters, or these 3 dots. Or they can be a run of the same suit, 3, 4, 5. So your goal is to make 4 sets of 3 and a pair. Now the winds do not make runs. So having the west, east, and south wind, that's not a run. The winds, you can only use them in sets. Same thing with the dragons. You can only use them in 3 of a kind. So three north winds, 3 green dragons, 3 red dragons. So the only time you can do runs are when you have 3, 4, 5, and you can only do a run of 3. It's not like rummy in that you can continue to extend this. It's a set of 3. So again, the goal in a mahjong hand is to end up with 4 sets of 3 and a pair. So let me talk a little bit about gameplay in mahjong. The way it works, as I said earlier, is on your turn you're going to draw a tile and you're going to discard a tile. But before that, the way the game gets set up is you take all the tiles, you dump them out, you shuffle them around, everyone takes a pile of tiles, an equal-sized pile, and puts them in rows of 2. And then everyone pushes their wall, this rows of 2, up into making a big square. So you have the Great Wall of China set up there. And then there's some rules about rolling the dice to determine who starts and rolling the dice to determine where you break the wall. At that point, everyone's going to get some tiles. You're going to get your starting hand of 13 tiles. The dealer, or the person who is going first, will have a 14th tile, and then they will discard a tile to start play. The next player will then draw a tile and discard, and so on. So that works like a traditional card game. On your turn, you draw the next tile from the wall, look at it, decide if you want it, and if you don't, then you discard it. When you discard it, you declare it. You say, this is a 3-dot, so that everyone doesn't have to watch what you're discarding. If it's a tile they're looking for, they can hear that you discarded it. Now, again, different people will play mahjong in different ways. So before you sit down to play, you'll want to find out about all of their different house rules. How do they handle discards? Some people I've played with put all the discards in the middle and just a big mess. Other folks, and what I like to do, is you put the discards that you have discarded in front of you. This is nice, and that this makes it a more relaxing game, because you don't have to remember what everyone's discarded. You can look and see what they've discarded. So if you look over at here and you see I've discarded all of these, you might notice that I've not discarded any characters at all. So you might say, I don't think I'm going to discard a character because it looks like Scott might want those, because I can see that. So it makes it actually, I find it's a very nice, relaxing game to play if you play it like that, where you can see all the discards. You don't have to remember things. You can just chat. If you need to know the state of the game, you can look down and see what's going on. Now, you'll keep your hand in front of you like this. And notice I've got these here. What will happen during gameplay? Normally, you draw a tile and you discard a tile. That's how the gameplay works. And once tiles are discarded, then they're dead. You can't get them anymore, with an exception. At the time someone discards a tile, if you have a pair of those, and that tile they discarded would make a 3 of a kind, you can call for that tile. So you can say, the term pung means a 3 of a kind, so you can say pung and grab that tile that has just been discarded and then put your set face up to show what you made. We actually prefer just to say mine, 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 but you can do whatever you'd like. So someone discards red dragon, I say mine, 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 and grab it and put it up and show that I have 3 of a kind. And then I discard, and it's like I just played. And so when that happens, people are going to get skipped. So when someone calls for mine, 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 people will get skipped in the turn order, because it's like that person then discards and the turn goes on from then. Now you can do that for a 3 of a kind, or you can do it for a 4 of a kind. Let's say I had these 3 red dragons in my hand, and someone discarded red dragon. I can say mine, mine, mine. Well, it'd actually say Kong, and that means 4 of a kind. And I can show the 3 of a kind and then take the 4th one. Now notice earlier I said you go out by getting 4 sets of 3 and a pair. Well, how is this going to be a set of 3? What happens then at that point, I draw an extra tile from a stack of tiles we've put aside called the dead tiles. The last 14 tiles in the game are never drawn. They're the dead tiles. When you hit that point in the game, you stop. So you're not going to go through the whole deck. You may get stuck simply because you held a tile that was in the dead pile. When someone makes a 4 of a kind, they take a tile out of the dead pile and add it to their hand. Now at this point, they actually are going to have an extra tile. But conceptually, you count this as a set of 3 and then go on from there. You want to do this because it's worth more points. Having 4 of a kind is worth more than 3 of a kind. If someone has already played their 3 face up and someone else discards the 4th, they can't call for it at that point. At that point, the 4th one is a safe discard because you know someone can't call for it. They've already shown it. So you could only call for it like that if you happen to draw those 3 from the wall. And then you can say, oh, mine, 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 and grab that one, stack it up, take another one from the dead pile, and then discard, and play will continue from you. Now, you can't call for runs in the same way. Calling, right, as I talked about, you can only call like this if it's a pair you're calling for. You can only call for a run if you're the next player to go. There's a couple reasons for that. Runs are easier to make than sets, and so it prevents the turn order from jumping around quite so often. Also, the important one, runs are worth no points. Runs are worthless. So you don't usually make runs unless you're just trying to make them to go out, to go mahjong. So you can only call for a run if you are the next person to play, because then it doesn't disrupt the turn order. So again, you can call for a tile if it makes a set of 3 or a set of 4, but you cannot call for a tile if it's a run unless you're the one that's going next. So the other thing, you can always call for the tile to let you go mahjong. No matter if it's in the run, if it's in the pair, remember 4 sets of 3 in a pair, or if it's in a set of 3, you can always call for the tile to go mahjong. Now, if multiple people call for a tile at once, one player might want to call it for a run, the next player, someone else wants to call it for a 3 of a kind. The mahjong call has priority over all the others. The call for a set of 3 or 4 has priority over call for a run. The call for the run is the weakest call of all. So that's the way the gameplay will work. On your turn, you take a tile, you look at it, you decide if you want it. If you do, you add to your hand. Otherwise, you discard it and call it out. Green dragon. Someone else, if this would make a set of 3 for them, they can say, mine, 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 and take it. If the next player, if it would make a run for them, they can take it. And that's how the game goes, until someone matches up their entire hand into 4 sets of 3 in a pair. At which point, they flop their tiles down and gleefully declare, Mah Jong! And everyone else gleefully says bad words to them. So, you play the game until someone goes out, everyone else says bad words, and everyone shows all of the sets that they made, and you score. Now, mahjong is a gambling game. It's a zero-sum game, and what that means is that everyone pays each other in points. It's usually easiest if you have some sort of chips or markers, because you're going to end up paying each other the difference between your hands. Let me talk briefly about the hand values. For every run you have, it's worth nothing. So runs are worthless. Runs are really only worthwhile if you're trying to go out. A set of 3 tiles that are numeric tiles from 2 to 8 is worth 2 points. If you called for that 3rd tile, if someone else discarded it, you said mine, 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 it's worth 2 points. If you drew them all yourself, you didn't call for it, it's worth 4 points, that same set. A set of 3 tiles that are 1s or 9s, terminals. It's interesting, in this game they take into account that 1s and 9s do not form runs as easily as the rest, and they give you more points if you make a set with 1s and 9s. 1s and 9s, winds, and dragons are all worth 4 points for the set if you called for it, mine, 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 or 8 points for the set if you drew them all yourself from the hand and they were concealed. And when you're scoring, this is how you indicate. You flip over one of the tiles in the set to show that that was a concealed set. Finally, your pair, remember it's 4 sets of 3 and a pair. If your pair happens to be dragons or a special wind, you'll get an extra 2 points. Now I should briefly talk about the winds. Each round of play, there is the wind of the round. That starts out as the east wind. The east wind are special winds which score. They do other things, as I'll explain later on. Each player, based upon where they're sitting at the table, also has a wind, north, south, east, or west wind. And if you get your own wind, you're going to get more points for that. So it's good to always, the wind of the round is important for you to get, and it's always good for you to get your wind, whichever that is. So take that into account when you're choosing your discards. There are some other scores that are added to this. If you're the one that went mahjong, you get 20 points. If you have no runs at all, you get 10 points. There's some other things that add in. But what really makes the scoring dangerous are the doubles. There's lots of things that double your score. For example, every set of dragons that you have doubles your score. A set of the wind of the round doubles your score. A set of your own wind doubles your score. If you have all one suit, i.e. all bamboos, if you have winds and dragons in there as well, so winds and dragons in one suit, that's 1 double. Winds and dragons, without winds and dragons, and just 1 suit is 3 doubles. So there are these hands that are harder to make, and you're going for these doubles. And so this is why this is a dangerous game to play for money. Because what will happen is people will right away, if they don't have a good hand, all they will try to do is get the game to the end and make no one win. And then they will try and wait till they get a good hand on the draw and then go for lots of doubles, and then before you know it, you're paying them $8,000. So the scoring is a little complex. One thing I'm going to put up on my Board Games with Scott website, I've made this little quick reference, and so I'll put that up for you to download and use in scoring your mahjong. Now the last thing I want to talk about are special hands. Special hands are special combinations of tiles that give you lots of points, and they score what's called the limit. Usually what you do is you agree ahead of time what the limit is going to be. Maybe 500 points, 1,000 points, whatever, and that's the most you can score in a hand. So for example, the Imperial Jade, a hand entirely of 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8 bamboos and green dragons, is the limit hand. 4 Kongs and a pair, 4 of a kind and a pair is a limit hand. Mahjong with 3 sets of dragons is a limit hand. I've never seen anyone actually get any of these in my play, but they're there. Oh, I didn't mention this. If you happen to get a set of 4 of these, again, it doesn't happen often, because, but it happens every once in a while. If you get a set of 4, it's 4 times these points. So a set of 4 of any tile is 4 times 2 is 8 points. So a set of 4 is 4 times the points you see here. The other thing you should know about mahjong is that matters who is the dealer. The person who's the dealer is the person who is east. And east is in double jeopardy when they play. The way it works is the east player pays double all of their losses and wins double all of their wins. And if the east player wins the hand, goes mahjong, they get to stay as east player. If the east player loses the hand, it then passes to the next player. A complete game of mahjong is where you go around the board and everyone is east, and then you switch to the next wind of the round, and everyone is then north, and everyone is west, and everyone is south, and that's a complete game of mahjong. I've never actually gotten through that. That would take a lot of time, because if you win as east, you stay as east. So any payments in and out to the east player are doubled when you score. The final thing I should mention on scoring is the importance of going mahjong. As I mentioned earlier, this is a zero-sum game. So if you go mahjong, you don't pay anyone. They only pay you the value of your hand. Then the other 3 players work out, they pay each other the values of their hands. So if you go mahjong, you're not going to pay anyone. That's the advantage of going mahjong, is you don't have to pay anyone anything. The other players then pay each other. So if I did not go mahjong and I have a 4-point hand, I'm going to get $4 from the other 2 players who didn't go mahjong. So everyone first pays the mahjong player, then the other 3 players settle up amongst themselves based upon the value of their hands. When you're buying a set of mahjong tiles, there's some things you want to look for. First off, if you're not good at reading Chinese, if you don't know, for example, that that is east, you want to make sure that it has the English letters on the corner of the tiles. Same thing with the character tiles. Again, if you don't know off the top of the head that that's 3 and that's 4, you're going to want to make sure that they have numbers up there. When I was in Beijing, I was able to buy mahjong sets with the English numbers at the top. So it's certainly something that's easy to find. Then the other thing to think about when you're buying tiles are these blank tiles. If you want to ever play American Mah Jong, you're going to need 8 of these blank tiles. Most of the typical sets only come with 4. So if you want a set that can play both American Mah Jong and Asian Mah Jong styles, you need to have 8 of these blank tiles, and then you want to make sure that the tiles have the English numbers at the top. These blank tiles might also be labeled as jokers. So that's the main things to look at when you're buying in a set, to make sure that they have the characters, the English characters, and if you want to be able to play American Mah Jong, that you have 8 blank tiles, because it can be hard to find these tiles after you've bought the set. So that's pretty much it. On your turn, you draw a tile, you discard a tile, you call out for a set of 3 or 4 if you can make that, you call out for a run if you're the next player, and you're trying to make 4 sets of 3 in a pair. If you go mahjong, you don't have to pay anyone else, otherwise everyone pays each other, and you play another hand. Now I find using the method I've talked about here in an Asian-style Mah Jong with the discards up like that, I find it to be a very relaxing game. You can sit around and chat, a very social game. I do want to talk briefly about American Mah Jong. I've tried it as well. I don't like it as much. What happened during World War II is a lot of people were introduced to Mahjong, and Americans liked the special hands. You know, they had names like the Hidden Treasure, the Jade Garden. They liked the special hands. And so a variant of mahjong was built where all you could do was make special hands. So no longer are you making 4 sets of 3 in a pair. Instead, you're going to match one of the special hands, and you only go out if you match a special hand. Now, what's gone on is every year there's a card released with all the special hands for that year of play. And so the National Mah Jongg League gets to get money from everyone playing mahjong to get the new cards with the new hands. And so what you do when you're playing American Mah Jong, you're spending a lot of time looking at that card, trying to figure out what hands you could match up. And they dictate all 14 tiles. Now, to help you out, you have those blanks. The blanks work as jokers. You can use them for anything. And also, before you start the hand, you trade tiles with each other. So you swap tiles would make it a little easier. But I found it to be very constraining. I found that I didn't enjoy just trying to match a hand, staring at these cards. I found it was much calmer and more gentle to just try to make 4 sets of 3 in a pair and match it up however you can. So my review of mahjong, it's a rummy game. You know, it's based on rummy. I find that it's very pretty, it's elegant to play, it can be very calming to play, a nice social game to chat. I give it a good solid B rating. There's not a lot of depth, as you've seen. It's fairly luck driven. If you don't get the tiles, then you're out of luck. If you play online, you'll quickly learn that the way experienced people play is they look at their hand immediately, and if they're not going to be able to score a big hand, they will plan on just trying to stop everyone else. So all they will do is collect individual tiles, trying to break up the sets that other people are going to make. And I don't find that to be very enjoyable at all, to play against that, because then it's hand after hand and nobody wins and nobody wins. But you can go online and try that out. You'll find that online there's a common variant where you have to have a hand that has at least 3 doubles before you can go out. As I mentioned earlier, there's lots of variants to this. What I've described here is a fairly generic variant, built off of rules I found online and through Hoyle. But before you sit down to play, talk about the scoring, talk about how they do things, so that everyone's on the same foot. With that, I'd suggest you give mahjong a try, see if it's something you'd like. It's a game you can play with gamers and non-gamers. A great way to just sit around and chat and toss some tiles. So with that, I shall say 再见, or goodbye. And I will see you on an upcoming episode of Board Games with Scott. To see more of these, go to boardgameswithscott.com. That's all. Bye-bye.